Llewellyn. Are you there, Llewellyn? Master Llewellyn? Are you there? So much going on in this world today, man. So much happening. There's so much going on in this world, both negative and positive. I used to be confused by it. It used to confuse me. I'm a little smarter now, so it doesn't confuse me as much. Hello world, please gather round and tune in to the Llewellyn sound. Broadcasting live from a town near you to break it down. Talking about the basics, simple as a noun. That's the foundation along with the pronouns. Verbs, adjectives, adverbs, conjunctions, interjections, prepositions, and punctuation. We haven't even had a conversation. You don't even know the preparation I had to go through for this station. Better yet, channel. But YouTube needs my grammar. That's what's up, people. Welcome back to the Llewellyn Show. That's right. This is not really a show. This is actually a class. You're not really here to have fun. You're actually here to learn. But if you have fun by mistake, I'm not going to get mad at you. Today we're going to be covering verbs. That's right. Verbs. So let's get right on into it. Verbs, 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 verbs. Actions speak louder than words. That sure is true. The great thing about the part of speech known as verbs is that it represents all of the words that stand for actually doing something, actually taking action. You know, a lot of people say talk is cheap. A lot of people say that you can talk it, but can you walk it? Or you can talk it, but can you back it up? And really what they mean is, I hear the nouns that you're calling out, but do you have the power to execute it with verbs? And I'm here to tell you today that I believe that if a person cannot choose or use the correct verb for a particular action, then they don't know how to perform that action. And when I say perform the action, I mean, when I say know how to perform the action, I mean to actually understand the action that they're performing. Now, a bird or a parrot could actually speak some English words, maybe even in an English sentence. A parrot, such as a bird, a magpie maybe, or a raven or a crow. Now, with the exception of the crows, ravens, and magpies, I'll say that they don't know what they're talking about. That's right. They don't know what they're talking about. They're just creating the sound and reaping the benefit of what that sound stands for them, but they don't understand what it stands for to whoever they got the sound from. What I mean is that those birds, they most likely don't necessarily understand human speech. Just like we don't really understand their speech. We can gather clues to determine what they mean by some of their calls. Oh, 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 oh. But we don't know exactly what it means. Okay, we don't have a dictionary of crow words. Well, maybe we do, but I can assure you that the crows don't have a dictionary of our words. My point is that verbs stand for actions. So this is probably the most favorite of all of the parts of speech for most people. People love action, and this is exactly what verbs are. So before we continue with verbs, I want to also state that grammar is actually where a person is first introduced to law. That's correct. Grammar is where a person is first introduced to law. Well, what do you mean, Llewellyn? Well, what I mean is that being that grammar basically uh, is the rule or is the rules for language, and language being the system of thought and system of speech, therefore action, thought, speech, action, yeah. Thought, therefore action, or thought, speech, and therefore action. The first law we ever are introduced to in a conscious sort of way is grammar. One of the first things anybody will ever tell you is, as a child, don't say that. And when you first start off, they're just happy for you to say anything. But as you continue growing up, someone may tell you that someone most likely will tell you that you should not say a certain thing, or that you should not say a certain thing in the way that you said it. And this is the beginning of law. And I'm here to tell you today that if you ever want to understand law, or if you even want to begin understanding law and laws and bills and other things, the very best thing you can do is to really master grammar, because it is the foundation of all law. If you want to learn English law, then you should first master English grammar. If you want to learn Chinese law, then you should first master Chinese grammar. If you want to learn Latin law, then you should first master Latin, so forth and so on. If you want to understand the laws of the universe, then you must first master mathematics. So anyhow, let's go on ahead and jump right into these verbs. I hope you guys felt me. Okay, so we've already covered nouns, pronouns, and noun and pronoun cases. Well, everything in grammar is sort of built off of the other. So verbs are most certainly built off of nouns. I'm going to make that clear to you so that you can make this connection. So as we recall, nouns are the names of things. So is an action a thing? Well, if an action is a thing, then a word for an action is actually a noun. Now we've already addressed it to a certain extent with the with the particular sort of noun known as the gerund noun or the gerund noun, right? And that's a noun formed by adding ing to a verb. So it's a verb already, but you add ing to it and you get a noun. And then also you have the infinitive noun, which is a noun formed by adding, well, is a noun formed by a verb um, and the word to, prefixed by the word to. So an example of a gerund noun is talking. I'm going to have a quick talking with him. Another example of a gerund noun would be uh, exercising. Let's do a quick exercising. Now, I know I'm using some strange examples of verbs, but I'm attempting to show you the flexibility of the English language. You may be encountering users of this language from as far away as India. And what I mean by users is, for the most part, I mean native speakers. Right? And all the way in India, we found some interesting usages of the English language. So if you want to be creative, always remember you can invent a noun by simply adding ing to it in its appropriate way, form a gerund noun. Um, and then the same goes with the infinitive noun, which would be to think. To think is the key to success. And notice I'm not using these nouns in verb ways. I'm using the nouns in noun ways. But I hope the reason I'm highlighting this is so that hopefully you can draw a connection between nouns and verbs and see that they are essentially the same thing, or rather or see that verbs are actually nouns. Really, every other word is actually a noun. Like when we look at pronouns, those are really nouns. They're just set nouns that don't necessarily change in a given language. And then pronoun cases and noun cases are essentially nouns because it's dealing with nouns in their different forms and it's dealing with pronouns, which we have already equated with nouns. So how does the verb actually equate with the noun? It equates through the gerund noun and the infinitive noun. And furthermore, a verb equates to a noun in that the word itself names the action that is being performed, that is taking place. Therefore, it is a noun because it names a thing. It's a special noun. It's called a verb. All right. So what is a verb exactly? A verb is a word, or we could say a noun, that indicates action or a state of being. Okay, so an action is something that requires ability, power, or energy from a being. It could be any sort of being, mostly animate beings, but with the far stretch of the imagination, inanimate beings also perform actions. One can say that the pillars of the building hold up the ceiling. The pillars of the building hold up the ceiling. Hold is the verb, or hold up is the verb phrase. The ceiling is the object, and the pillars of the building is the noun phrase. or a state of being. So a state of being would be namely the verb to be in all of its different forms. I am, you are, she is, he is, we are, they are. Past tense, I was, you were, they were, she was, he was, we were. If I didn't say that already. And then of course you could have other words such as exist, to exist, I exist, you exist, he exists. It's not necessarily doing anything, but it does indicate a state of being. Therefore, it is a noun or it is a verb as well. So one interesting thing to note is that all verbs have 5 properties. And they are the property of person, which by listening to the verb, you'll be clued on to who is performing the verb, who or what is performing the verb, and that is a property known as person. Notice how I am is different from you are, but in both instances we're talking about the verb to be. In certain forms of non-standard English, it is often said I be, you be, he be, she be. And in that sense, person, the property of person is totally diminished. And just so you know, in English, a lot of these properties are, well, have diminished significantly, but the places where they remain are significant, and I advise most people to keep person in mind, keep the property of person in mind. The next property is number. You can listen to a verb and assume its number. For instance, and keep in mind that grammatical number is Boolean or binary. Well, I'd say Boolean. It's either 0 or none. I mean 0 or 1. I'm sorry, 0 or 1, or rather, singular or plural. That's actually more correct. So it's Boolean, but it's slightly different from Boolean, from the standard traditional Boolean. It's either singular or it's plural. And that's the extent to which number goes in English, unless, of course, you use a quantifier and give a specific number. But it's obvious when you say, I am, you know that that's singular. And when you say we are, you know that that's plural. Now, they are tricks you a bit because a lot of times people use they when they want to escape using he or she, because currently people don't want to accept their gender or don't want to. It's some psychological program going on in the country where no one wants to, well, where a good number of people do not want to identify their gender. I'm not trying to start up the controversy just yet, so let's just continue on. But under normal circumstances, number is indicated by the way the verb is conjugated, along with person. Person is also indicated by that, right? So the next property would be voice. Now, voice as a property indicates it indicates a relationship between the subject and the action of the verb. So that so essentially, voice is about who is performing the action of the verb, or who is having the action performed on them. Okay, so the voice of the verb is about who is actually performing the action of the verb, or who the action of the verb is being performed upon. We'll get to the details of that in just a moment. Finally, the last property of the verb, part of speech known as the verb, is tense. And tense is an indication of time in a verb. So present tense, past tense, future tense. And then also instead of just time, it also represents, I think it's called form. Right, form. And what form is it indicates, I guess, something about how the action is performed. So if it was simply performed, then you use the simple tense. If it was completed, then you would use the perfect tense. And if it is going on still right now, it's currently happening, then you would use the progressive tense. And if it has been completed and it is still going on right now, then you would use the perfect progressive tense. And that we might touch back on, but that's essentially what tense is, which is form and time. So with the 5 properties of verbs firmly lodged into your mind, we have, I'd say, about 9 different types of verbs. I've never really counted them, so I'll count them out loud as I go through the ones I can remember. But I'm fairly certain that there are only 9 types of verbs. If you know any more, please leave them in the comment section. The main type of verb is known as the regular verb. And a regular verb is a verb whose past tense form is made by simply adding ed, or just a d if it already ends in an e. So any verb that can be transformed into a past tense, transformed into a past tense, is known as a regular verb. An example would be the verb to play. I played, she played, he played, we played. Played. Another example might be cooked, or the verb to cook. I cooked, you cooked, she cooked, we cooked. Okay? Do you understand now what a regular verb is? All right, I'm sure you do. Irregular verb. The second type of verb is the irregular verb. And that's a verb whose past tense form cannot be formed by adding an ed, or just simply a d. So that's pretty simple. An irregular verb is everything except a regular verb. So those are the two main types of verbs. And a regular verb, an example of a regular verb would be the verb to bring. I brought, she brought, he brought, they brought, we brought. Sounds nothing like bringed, or he brings, she bringed. You see, there's no ed. Therefore, that is an irregular verb. An irregular verb. So the third verb that we're going to look at here is the transitive verb. And the transitive verb is a verb that requires an object to complete its meaning. So, what do I mean by an object? Well, an object would be some noun or noun phrase. What a transitive verb is a verb that essentially is an object. And without that object, the verb itself has no meaning, or it doesn't have a complete meaning. An example would be let's see. You could say that the cat did, or the cat um, okay, this one's kind of difficult for me to come up with an example. Let me think really hard. Okay, I'll say the artist makes, right? The artist makes. Now, the verb is makes. The subject and the noun are the artist. The artist makes. So that's incomplete because, well, what does the artist make? He makes. Even if we said he makes or she makes, that's not a normal sentence because that verb is not complete because that's a transitive verb. He makes. Well, what does he make? We need an object. And that object is, in the instance of the artist, it is art. The artist makes art, or the artist makes a painting. The artist makes a lot of money. Okay? So transitive verbs require an object to complete their meaning. Okay? Intransitive verbs are verbs that cannot take an object even if you wanted to give them an object. So an example would be I'd say maybe um, remained. Yeah, remained. And so I remained calm. Now this one is a little tricky because calm seems like it could be an object, but it's actually an adjective. And so intransitive verbs can still take adjectives, but they can't take objects. So I can't say that I remained well, I could say it, but let me come up with a better verb. Maybe stay, to stay, the verb to stay. She stayed calm, right? But I can't say she stayed um, female. She stayed female. Well, you could actually use that, but that would be in the sense of that would be a noun that was transformed into an adjective. What is that known as? Um, well, basically, yeah, that's kind of like a tricky part of English, but nouns can be transformed into adjectives. I'll get into that on not this. No, I'm gonna tell the next episode. We haven't covered adjectives yet, but it's actually next. But yeah, but it can't take a noun. It can't take an object. It can take adjectives, but it can't take an object. So that's a intransitive verb. And so the fifth verb we're looking at here is the linking verb. And a linking verb is a verb that connects to, well, it basically connects a subject to a predicate. And that predicate can be a noun or an adjective. So an example would be the last sentence I said. We could pretty much use as an example, because a linking verb is essentially a intransitive verb. That can also take a noun. Okay. So a linking verb is like it's a verb that it's like a combination between a transitive verb and an intransitive verb. An example would be perhaps I would say this is he. You know, the way people answer the telephone. This is he. This is she. Um, is the linking verb in this instance. And the reason we use he or she is because we're using a subject. We're connecting a subject to a predicate noun or adjective. So that would include the corresponding pronoun. And so you say, this is he. And I know it says a predicate noun. And so for the most part, you know, you would think that, well, actually, I think that is what that stands for. It stands for the object. But the predicate noun is not necessarily always the object. It depends on which case you're tempted to use. So review the cases video to understand the cases a bit more. But remember, there are three cases: the subject case, the object case, and the possessive case. And if you want to use the subject case for your predicate noun, you can. We're going to get into predicates close to the end of this series, but for today, we're just going to just soak in the knowledge of linking verbs. So a linking verb is a verb that connects a subject to a predicate noun or adjective. The sixth type of verb is the auxiliary verb, or it's commonly known as the helping verb. And the auxiliary verb is a verb that combines with another verb, and it sort of modifies the meaning of that verb that it combines with. But there are only a set number of auxiliary verbs in English. Um, the main ones are be. So I am doing well, am doing. The auxiliary verb is am. The verb is doing. Another example would be can. I can do, or I can walk, or I can sing. You're letting the listener know that you have the ability to sing, walk, or do. So that's how that modifies the meaning. Another one would be have, do, or will. Some other ones would be have, do, or will. I have seen. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Have seen, and so when we look a little deeper into the various forms of verbs, and there are only four: simple, perfect, progressive, and perfect progressive, we will see how the auxiliary verbs serve a role in the form. So let us continue. The seventh type of verb is known as the compound verb. And what the compound verb is a combination of an auxiliary verb and another verb. Compound verbs are used to create verb tenses that can't be made from single verbs. So essentially, a compound verb is an auxiliary verb is also a compound verb. Well, when it's combined with the other verb that it's using, it's a compound verb. All along, the auxiliary verb is just one word, but you could tell that it's a verb, that it's an auxiliary verb by the way it connects to some other verb. But those two verbs together are known as a compound verb. An example is I will show up. Will and show up, or will show, is the compound verb. And then the eighth type of verb is known as the modal auxiliary verb. And the modal auxiliary verb is one that expresses necessity, obligation, potential, or possibility. And an auxiliary verb is one, an example would be, let's see, is actually similar to the subjunctive mood. We haven't gotten there yet, but we'll get there soon. But a modal auxiliary verb is a verb that is used to indicate the subjunctive mood, like would, should, and could. Those are all modal auxiliary verbs. She would go if she were given $100. Would is the modal auxiliary verb. And then finally, our ninth verb is the infinitive verb, which we've already addressed that in the noun section. But in this sense, we're not using it as a noun, we're using it as a verb. An example of that would be Llewellyn likes to make videos. To make is the infinitive verb. All right. And so the next thing that we will go on into is actually, well, I wanna further explain the property of person for you, and it can be broken down into three simple categories. You have the first person, the second person, and the third person. The first person essentially expresses the identity of a speaker or a writer. So if I say, I'm wonderful, that's a first person statement. It's indicated by the verb am or apostrophe. We haven't gotten into contractions yet, but I'm sure most of you have heard of that already. Second person addresses the reader or the listener directly. An example would be, you are special. You are special. And it's indicated by are. Okay. And then the third person refers to the subject that is neither the listener or the speaker. So all third person statements refer to someone who's not listening or speaking. An example would be, she is beautiful. It's indicated by the verb is. Now, please keep in mind that a lot of times people use the third person property improperly, and they actually talk about people who are listening. So just because I'm telling you these laws of grammar or these rules of grammar, it doesn't mean that people follow them. Part of the reason why I'm making sure that I'm getting this out to you is so that you can just know what the rules are, what the rules of propriety are, so you can know who is violating what, and you can make the decision on whether or not you want to move forward with a person who would violate the language in such a way. Yeah, there's more to a person that says watch your language than curse words. Watch your language in another sense, because it indicates your level of education, or maybe even your level of respect for your listeners or writers. Anyhow, let's move on to the next thing. I want to further explain the property known as number. And what number is the form of a verb that always matches the number of the subject. So I already explained how the numbering when it comes to English grammar is more or less Boolean, but it's based on singular and plural. So the zero and or the false in the standard Boolean. Well, I guess I'm assuming that you guys know what I mean when I say Boolean, but if you don't, please look it up or understand by context what I mean. But the false Boolean is known as singular in English, and the true Boolean is known as plural in English. So An example of a singular form of a verb would be um, the mouse jumped over the broom, or the cow jumped over the moon. um, the cow jumps over the moon, or the mouse jumps over the broom. Jumps. Okay, Jumps. That indicates that it was only one cow. There was only one mouse. The mouse jumps over the broom, and that is an example of a singular form. Um, and that can apply with two singular subjects uh, that are joined by either slash or neither slash nor, which are some uh, pairs of words that work together. An example of that would be either the mouse jumps over the broom, or no, actually, let me go back. Either the mouse or the cow jumps over the broom. So the singular subjects are the cow or the mouse. So either the cow or the mouse jumps over the moon. Another example would be neither the cow nor the mouse jump over the broom. I hope you understand that. It's a very excellent device to use when you're writing or speaking. It can confuse people too, though, but sometimes you need to confuse people uh, to actually reach them. I don't like to do it very often, but I found that for as far as like dealing with massive amounts of people, you can't expect everyone to understand you. So it's best to just confuse the crap out of everybody and then slide in the important information that you have. Don't do it like me and try to be very specific with everyone, because you're not going to have a large following. But yeah, it doesn't matter for me, because I'm not for everyone. I'm for that slither of, you know, very intelligent people, or that slither of people who want to be very intelligent. Another example of a singular form would be instead of using or nor, you can use, or I'm sorry, instead of using either or neither nor, you could actually use or nor followed by an is. Now let me give you an example of that. Either the mouse or the dog is jumping. So it's just a combination of or and is, and of course we're using either again. Um, but we actually using a verb um, to indicate the actual action, as opposed to the other example where you know what, actually they're pretty much the same. Let me just keep moving on. This stuff can get kind of complex, so excuse me. Um, I mean, it's not really complex, but it's complex to talk about the actual laws that govern the language that we're talking. I think this is called uh, meta analysis or metadata or something. But we're talking about the thing that actually governs the language that we are talking. So that's why it can get kind of complex, because it's almost like me having to step out of my body and explain to you why I'm standing like I'm standing. That's some kind of example, isn't it? So anyhow, let's move on. We have another example of the singular form, which is um, where the subject is actually preceded by the word every or each. Um, So an example would be every person wishes they had some power. Every person wishes they had some power. Okay? Now, forgive me now, guys. I know that this is intense for you. Your attention uh, is not that long, but I'm assuming that you have the attention span of at least a college student, which is about 50 minutes. Um, but I'm sure most of you don't. But just try to pause the video and come back to it later. Okay, pause the video, come back to it later. But I'm gonna keep going here. Uh, if I didn't warn you, I'll warn you now. Verbs are not easy to handle, or to talk about, because you're actually talking about what you're doing. So the next Boolean of number would be the plural form, and that is when a subject is plural. So instead of saying or instead of saying he dances or she dances or that person dances, which would be singular, you would actually say they dance. And it's interesting how the pronoun I, the pronoun I actually seems like it's plural. We're going to get into that a little bit later on, but there's certain nuances to the English language that it makes it special in that way, that some of these things you just have to memorize. There's no trick to figuring it out. You just have to memorize it. Okay. And if you guys need any pointers on memory, reach out to me and I'll give you a few. And I probably will at least make one video after I complete this grammar series about memory, because it's one thing to use rote memory mechanisms to memorize a thing, and it's but it's another thing to actually use a memory technique. With the memory technique, you'll be like me. You might even be better than me. Probably be faster than me. I move kind of slow, but this is all coming from my mind. Uh, so let's see. Plural form. Subject is plural, right? When the verb, well, you can indicate it by the verb. The verb will tell you whether the subject is plural or singular, and it can be used for two singular subjects, which would be treated like a plural subject. So two singular subjects joined by the word and would receive a plural verb. Two singular subjects that are joined by or, either, or neither, nor would receive a singular form. And really, and that's where the main meat of this number thing is located, right there. So two singular subjects are joined by or, either or neither, nor, and they will receive a singular form. But if they are joined by the word and, these two singular subjects, then they will receive a plural form. And if the verb is if the verb is nearer to the subject or the singular subject in a compound sentence, and we haven't even covered compound sentences yet, but we will be covering that, I'd say, in about 7 more lessons. So stay tuned. We'll be covering the different types of sentences. But in a compound sentence, if the verb is nearer to the singular subject, and it has both a singular and a plural subject, and it is joined by or nor, then it receives a singular form. An example is either the rabbits or the dog is making that noise. Either the rabbits or the dog is making that noise. When it comes to two plural subjects, you would just say or, either or neither nor. So either the animals or either the animals or the people, and that's plural, even though it doesn't have an S on it. Either the animals or the people are the cause for the imbalance of the earth. And finally, if the subject, again, if the subject is preceded by every or each, then it automatically will receive a singular verb. If it's preceded by, um, well, actually, in the verb that is nearer to the plural subject, right? The verb that is nearer to the plural subject in a compound subject will receive a plural verb. An example would be either the viewer or the viewer's friends are trying to hack me. Okay? Either the viewer or the viewer's friends are trying to hack me. So it's about, I guess, second come, first served in that sense. So let's go ahead and move on to mood. We have 3 more short parts. Then I'm going to show you something special with the Python interpreter. We have mood, and so mood is the third property of a verb, and like a lot of people really abuse this one. They abuse the crap out of mood. People use the word mood. They have no idea what mood means. It's a meme. You just put the word mood and then have a picture. I like it, but that's more of a theme, people. A mood is either an emotional state, but when it comes to grammar, a mood is it's basically the attitude of the speaker. The mood is the attitude of the speaker. So you have 3 moods: the indicative mood, the imperative mood, or the subjunctive mood. Now, the indicative mood is used in declarative sentences to express facts, opinions, questions directly. So, for a black person, the teacher speaks beautifully. Now that sounds kind of racist. You guys gotta excuse me. I come from a place that just doesn't really like black people. Uh, just Just deal with it. But for an insurance, okay. So I'll say for a young person, uh, that boy writes beautifully. So the verb writes is in the indicative mood because it's just a declarative sentence and expresses a fact, an idea, an opinion, or question directly. All right. We haven't gotten into declarative sentences, but we will very soon. But make a note of it. Imperative mood is used in imperative sentences to issue commands. Bring my gun. Bring me my gun. So bring is a verb that is in an imperative mood. It's a command. We haven't gotten into imperative sentences yet, but we will soon. When you command someone to do something, when you issue a command, that's known as imperative mood. And the final mood is known as the subjunctive mood, and it's used in dependent clauses to indicate unreal or counterfactual conditions. That is, that the subjective is typically formed by using the past tense plural form of the verb, even if the subject is singular. But this is where people get confused at. The subjunctive is formed by using the past tense plural form of the verb, even if the verb is singular. So if I say, if I were to marry you, I would be happy. That would be correct. If I say, if I was to marry you, I would be happy. That would be incorrect because I'm not using the subjunctive mood. This is unreal or counterfactual conditions. Okay, so we have a language. We have an element of our language that we can use for unreal or counterfactual uh, subjects or ideas with those subjects. Uh, it's known as the subjunctive mood, counterfactual or unreal. So I suggest psychologically, for a person who struggles with uh, utilizing mood correctly, they they don't know, they can't understand the difference between facts, ideas, opinions, and questions, and commands, and unreal or counterfactual conditions. Now, the counterfactual conditions or the unreal conditions might be something that you're trying to create or suggest. And this is ultimately what the subjunctive mood is used for. But whenever you use it, remember, make the noun or make the verb plural, right? So that's a very, very good one right there, in my opinion. And if that were a very good one, we should get some response in the future, in the near future, about it. If that were a good one. Mhm. Past plural. Okay, and so the next thing we have here is the voice. And voice indicates, well, I've already covered this one, but I guess I'll go over it one more time. It's just active voice, passive voice. And I'll just let you know ahead of time, I'm using a memory system that essentially creates like a a chart. And so this is why it's like I'm reading the chart, but it's in my head. Um, I'll tell you guys the technique. Stay tuned and subscribe and get plenty of people to subscribe to my channel. Okay? Verb tense. Well, the voice. The voice is actually either active or passive. Active voice is the subject that performs the actual action. So if I say Llewellyn made this video, the active voice is Llewellyn. Now passive voice is the subject that receives the action. So the video would be the passive. Well, it wouldn't be the passive voice, because actually the passive voice would be you could say instead of the subject being Llewellyn, you would flip it, and you would say that this video was made by Llewellyn. So that would be the passive voice. So the active voice is Llewellyn made this video. The passive voice would be this video was made by Llewellyn. Um, and there are various reasons why you would choose to use these voices, but as you can guess, you might choose to use the active voice when you are in a more active role in life or in a certain situation. If you are in a passive role, it will probably benefit you to use the passive voice. It's just a little pointer on the usefulness of this grammar here. Then next finally we actually have the verb tenses. And a verb tense indicates the time in which an action is performed. Okay? English has 3 tenses: past, present, and future. Okay? Now, in all the other languages that I've studied, I haven't seen any other tenses. I haven't seen like a super future tense or a super past tense or a super present tense. I can't imagine what other time uh, element we could add to a language. Um, Past, present, future, like what else? But there may be a language, and maybe one day there will be some way to speak in another time frame. But for now, this is the only one. These are only 3, rather. And but what adds a little, what adds a lot of flexibility to the different time, uh, with the different tenses of time, are the different forms of the tenses. So you can have is essentially a 3x4 matrix of time and form. Okay, so the first form is known as the simple form, and that's a form that just indicates past, present, or future action. Perfect tense indicates a completed action at some point in time. So I think I already went over this, but I'll go over it again. A perfect tense the perfect form um, is one that indicates a completed action at some point in time. And a progressive tense is a tense that indicates an action that continues for a period of time. Okay? So, an example would be Um, I guess the simple past would be thought, I thought. But then the past perfect would be I have thought. The past progressive would be I was thinking. And then the perfect progressive, which is just a combination of the perfect and the progressive tense. I would say I have been thinking. I have been thinking. So that ultimately suggests that I had some complete thoughts and I'm in the process of completing more. So perfect progressive actually shows a lot of forethought. So you can gauge what a person's mind is based on uh, how they conjugate their verbs. Um, Most often it indicates either a seriousness in their speech or uh, if they don't conjugate much, it could indicate simply a lack of education. But for the most part, people tend to find these uh, different conjugations because or they create other ways of executing the same concept because you just kind of need these functions in your language if you're speaking high level language, if you're being precise. And so that concludes verbs. Yep, that concludes verbs. And so we're going to move on to the next section of our presentation of our lesson today. And so as I transition to the Python interpreter, I'd love for you to check out this music. All right. All right. I am back. What I want to show you guys really quickly, and this doesn't really relate to verbs, but I just think it's an awesome uh, thing you can do with Python. And so it actually is an action. So it's a verb, and it's called getting the day of the year. Now, we all know that it's currently September 29th, and you know you can do the math. Most people know that there are 30 days in the month of September. And it's the 9th month. So you can kind of do some math. 9 times 30 get you 270. Then you subtract 2 because February only has 28 days. And actually this was leap year. So you would subtract 1. So that would be 269. And then you would want to add a day for all of the 31, for all of the months that have 31 days in them, which would be January, March, May, July, and August, which, if I'm not mistaken, that's 5 days. So 269 plus 5 is 274. So we'll see if I'm right. I did that. That's mental math. But I want to show you with Python how you can actually do this and not rack your brain or waste paper attempting to figure out what the day is. But again, my guess is 275. The first thing you want to do is import date time. Well, actually, you want to from import date time. Actually, from date time import. You want to from date time import date time. And if you want to save typing, because date time is 8 letters, I normally import it as D. But from date time import date time as D. And then we can do a quick datetime.now. And we get beautiful date and time. Now, what I want to actually do is, hold on, give me 1 second. 1 second. All right, so let me show you this really quickly. So actually what you want to do is say now equals d dot now. then you would say now string from time percent J. I said 275. Anyhow, there's your answer. So it's day 273. And so that's the little Python trick that I will share with you today. Again, all you do is import from datetime. Import datetime from datetime. I like to import it as D. So if you didn't know, as is a keyword. And you want to save that into a variable. And then from that variable, you want to call an attribute known as string from time. And you want to give it a string percent %J. And I'm just going to try this, percent minus J. So it doesn't work on this platform that I'm using, but at least percent %J does. 73. I believe that the negative J works for maybe like Android devices or something, or Linux, form of Linux. I'm using a Unix-based system, but it's not Linux. But anyhow, what we're going to do with that particular data, 273, and actually just to make sure that we're getting this right. Okay, it's talking about Thursday. 16. All right, it is what it is. I know what it's talking about. I saw that up here. It's indicated up there already. So I'm coming from a book known as the 365 Dalai Lama Daily Advice from the Heart. There's a book called Daily Advice from the Heart, also known as 365 Dalai Lama. And I'm not necessarily a Buddhist, but I believe that we can gain wisdom from anybody who is actually trying to help us. Maybe these people aren't trying to help us, but we'll know by when, hopefully we'll know by reading some of their writing. Now, the Dalai Lama, who speaks Tibetan, Chinese or something, I don't know what he speaks, Hindi. If he can use good English grammar, then why can't we, people? Why can't we? I'm going to read this and then we're going to close on out. All right. It says meditations on not loving yourself. These are the Dalai Lama's thoughts on not loving yourself. And it reads, self-hatred is a very negative attitude. If we look deeply behind appearances, we realize that such hatred results from having too elevated an idea of who we are. We want to be the best at all costs. And if the slightest detail is missing from our ideal self-image, we cannot bear it. This is a form of pride. And that's it. That's what the Dalai Lama wanted to share with us on day 273 from his book 365 Dalai Lama. Self-hatred is a very negative attitude. If we look deeply behind appearances, we realize that such hatred results from having too elevated an idea of who we are. We want to be the best at all costs. And if the slightest detail is missing from our ideal self-image, we cannot bear it. This is a form of pride. Okay. So if you're ever in a state where you're hating yourself, maybe because you can't seem to get your verbs to agree with the subjects or something like that, don't think about don't think about it. Don't take it too seriously. Just make a note and keep trying. Eventually you will get it. But don't get into the hating of yourself because you failed or for any reason. Because if you do, ultimately that, according to the Dalai Lama, is just a sign of pride. It's a sign of thinking too highly of yourself. You don't have to be the best at everything. You don't even have to be the best at anything. As long as you can just be, I wouldn't say the best, but just be you. Just be yourself. And don't worry. So anyhow, thank you guys for tuning in. And if you have any questions about today's lesson, please leave it in the comment section. And know that I will see you very soon. And we will be covering adjectives. This has been Verbs with Llewellyn Von Helen. Hello world, please gather round and tune into the New Wellen sound, broadcasting live from a town near you. To break it down, I'm talking about the basics, simple as a noun. That's the foundation, along with the pronouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, conjunctions, interjections, prepositions, and punctuation. And we ain't even had a conversation. You know what? There's one more thing that I want to address before I can continue. There are so many racist people on the internet, and they use all sorts of tactics to, be racist. I'm almost I'm almost out of I'm almost out of words for these people, so I'm going to share it with you. So basically, so basically, basically, I had come from another page, and I had noticed some sort of racist thing, and I'm not going to get into the other thing that I noticed, but I carried it with me to another page where I saw Lupita Nyong'o, um, and that's the woman who was the voice for Rakasha in the Jungle Book, reimagined, and I think she's also the mother in the movie Queen of Katwe. I haven't seen that yet, but I made a comment, and I don't know if the comment was appropriate, but in my opinion, it was appropriate because I just found it interesting that so much hatred can be shown to what we call a black person, um, and then we can at the same time uplift certain ones. And so, what it's suggesting to me is that there are several people who are lying now in the United States of America. It should be common knowledge uh, that white people are racist here. The average white person is racist. Now, you will encounter white people who are not racist. They're hard to find, especially in anything near a white neighborhood, a black neighborhood. But I'd say maybe especially in a white neighborhood. The police will be calling you so fast just because you're black in certain neighborhoods. So it's a very, very simple conclusion that the average white person in America is racist. So I make a very simple statement. I say, uh, she's not human according to your average white person. And some of you might not like that comment. I can't say that I necessarily like it, but it's factual. I don't know. Some white people may follow me. I'm sure at least one white person is subscribed to this channel. I mean, you tell me. Do you believe that the average white person is uh, considers black people their equal? You believe that the average white person considers a black person their equals? They're equal. Does the average white person consider a black person their equal? Okay. So the first things that came out of that were a guy by the name of Tyr or Ty R. I don't know if he's trying to allude to Tyr, the god, the one hand god from Nordic mythology. But it says above, that's why I know the worst thing for politics is a politician. That's why I know that that a politician will only work as hard as the working class makes them. That's why I know and then it's blocked. I don't know what that is, but another person said, a person called Classy Maru Nada said, at least white races know they are racist, even if they don't tell anyone. While you probably don't think you are racist, you're still openly racist without giving a fuck. So right here, a person says, at least white racists know they are racist, even if they don't tell anyone. While you probably don't think you are racist, you're still openly racist. Now think about the original comment here. I said, she's not human, according to your average white person. And then the person responded, at least white racists know they are racist, even if they don't tell anyone. While you probably don't think you are a racist, and you still are openly racist without giving a fuck. So what this person essentially did was, and the name is Classy Maru Nara, some freak who's into manga. But from these few words that I wrote, she's not human. It's 3 words according to your 6 average white person. 9 words. She's not human according to your average white person. And they respond, at least white racists know they are racist, even if they don't tell anyone. Now, this is exactly what I'm talking about. White racists are racist and they try to keep it to themselves. But when you're dealing with intelligence, we have a good idea about what you're thinking. Clues point to it. And then the person begins to make an assertion or make an assumption about me. While you probably don't think you are a racist, and you still are openly racist without giving a fuck. So I'm racist because I point out racism. I still don't understand what is going through people's minds when they make these sorts of accusations. If I notice that the sky is blue, does that make me blue? If I notice that a dog is barking, does that mean I'm barking? If I notice that a rapper is good, does that make me a good rapper? If I notice that an artist is a good artist, does that make me a good artist? No. But in this instance, when I notice that white people are racist, then I'm racist. Prove to me that white people aren't racist. The next person chimes in, and their name is Proxima 256. And they say, average white person, how delusional are you? And I reply back, the average white person declares that a stranger is delusional when that stranger tells a fact. Keep pretending that the average paleface is not racist. Fake it till you make it. And then someone, okay, and then the next thing I said was Proxima 256. And how difficult is it to get an avatar? Because I don't understand why people without avatars love to talk to people. People who don't have any sort of investment in YouTube other than just watching it or doing what they're doing. But then after that, oh, you're a troll. Sorry, as you were. Calling me a troll because I'm pointing out a fact. This is what we come to, people. We call people trolls who point out facts. And simple facts at that. And so I respond back. Proxima 256. Fucking idiot. You're trolling me. Either prove the statement false or shut the fuck up. Calling me a troll is just a cowardly way to deflect. Approximate 256. You have no avatar, no subscriber, no videos, and you call me a troll. You have serious problems with adjectives and nouns. And then a person chimes in, Jamie M. No, she is not human. She's a fucking goddess. And I can be an average white person and still know that. So then someone comes in with something completely unreal. This woman is not a goddess. I don't care. I don't care how you look at it. She's not a goddess. If she's a goddess, then the other woman walking down the street is a goddess too. They're women. They're humans. And see, what's interesting is this guy chimed in and said that she's not human. And people voted, yes, I like that. 4 people voted for that. Or liked that. People like false statements for some reason. And then Ty R or Tier came in with, I'm only racist because you say whites and pale faces are so. Want to see who can shoot better? Oh yeah, blacks can't shoot or carry because they are all felons. Don't you love Obama's gun control laws? No comma, and then the word bruh. And so he's going to probably try to blame it on him imitating some sort of black speech. He's gonna try to set that as the reason why he doesn't know how to use punctuation. And then Jamie R came back and said to Tier that he says, I suggest you read a book about how to compose a sentence and make a point, then try again. Because this comment makes no sense in any context on this thread. Tier says, Jamie, look at the original comment. You know, the one who everyone is replying to? Right. The question is, then are you average? That's what I asked Jamie. And then I write something great to Tier. I say, so I control you? You're only racist because I say white and pale faces are so? Do I really have that much power over you? Common sense emphatically tells me no. Truth is quite contrary. You're racist because you choose to be so. Do you know what a paragraph is? Perhaps you subscribe to my channel, as I will be covering that subject in a couple of weeks. For now, you began another paragraph, or as the other comment read, you made a comment that makes no sense in any context on this thread. I don't want to see who can shoot better unless it's us hunting for wild game to eat. Blacks are all felons, therefore they can neither shoot nor carry? It's not so. I can shoot and carry, as a matter of fact. Even if I were a felon, I could still shoot and carry illegally. But it just so happens that I'm not a felon, nor are the majority of black people that I associate with. Obama's gun control laws. Tell me this. What part of executive branch don't you understand? Do you even know the role of president in the United States? Do you even know the role a president of the United States serves? Let me briefly clue you in on how laws are legislated. The senators and the representatives collectively make bills. The president may veto certain bills by not signing them, but he does not create the bills himself. Sure, the bill only becomes law after the president signs, but any average white person can see the loophole in the legislation process. That's right, it's a loophole commonly referred to as check and balance. No matter how you look at it, the laws of America are created by the House and the Senate. There are many ways to deceive or coerce a single man into signing in a bogus law. With that said, it's all about who voted for whom, and since the palefaces are greater in number and a greater historical audacity to cheat the ballots, and that should be and have the I have to edit my own stuff, you guys. And have the greater historical audacity to cheat the ballots. Whoever they vote for generally is the one who makes the bills that become laws through either cooperating with the president or frustrating him to no end. The only power the president has that resembles creating laws known as the executive order. Interestingly, laws created by order only affect agencies and governmental bodies, not citizens. I do encourage you to study before you address me again, my dear white man. And then the guy replies back, "Ha, that's great. I'm not going to take the time to properly write something on fucking YouTube." And then he basically lies. Uh, Top 2% in reading and writing for your information. Okay, right. I, no proof of it. So no commas. I doesn't need your his help. So he starts talking in what he thinks is black talk. No capitalization or anything like that. Executive orders can influence everyone, considering that government officials, as well as the president, are all citizens. See, this man right here is confused. No better or worse than the rest of us. He's talking about stuff that wasn't even suggested. Not supposed to abuse their authority, but obviously do. Hence, our presidents have put far more than one exact order through. You, my black friend, might want to pick up a book yourself before attempting to be a keyboard Einstein. I do like you with the exception that you think illegally carrying and buying is something that is okay. So look at this. He's talking about he likes me after all of this racist crap. So they lie about all kinds of small stuff. Going on to the next thing, he says, I do like you with the exception that you think, okay, uh, you're like Hillary. Just play by the rules that you think matter and don't give a shit about law-abiding citizens. Balls in your court, black friend. This guy's a complete idiot. And then a person chimes in, another person without a face, without an avatar or anything, and just says bullshit. So what I'm going to do is really quickly respond live. I'm going to say, if you knew how to write better, then you just do it. But your desire to be racist to a person that you think is black is too strong. You are obviously nowhere near top 2%. Obviously nowhere near the top 2%. Right. So you must bribed the what is that called? The person who gives you the test. Um, the tester. I can't remember their name. The test administrator. I am. I am not. I'm not black. I am Llewellyn. You are simple-minded racist. If you didn't think simple-minded racist, black, would you fight this ignorant mess to me? You're a failure in my book. I hope you get your stuff together. Failure in my book, I hope you get yourself together. Either way, featuring the vivid commentary in my latest live stream around minute 50. I start talking about you. It's a video about verbs. Check it out, doofus. Check it out, doofus. No doofus. See, I don't even have insulting vocabulary at my command. Well, actually, I did have it at my command. It's just the spell check. Doesn't know the word. Check it out, doofus. Oh, and nothing you wrote is even partially logical. I'm sure I can gauge a gauge is always a tough one. I think it's GAGE. Oh, okay. It's GAUGE, even though GAGE is also a word. I'm sure I can gauge the IQ of people who like your comments. No more than 85. 80 or 85. Do the world a favor. Change your ways. Or kill yourself. LOL. Do the world a favor. Change your ways. Kill yourself. Alright, so get that to him. And then I'm gonna give a message to Valerie H just because I'm gonna say you have such poor vocabulary. Things that you're not the average white person, but you are below average white person. And I'll just give her that little bit. But anyhow, let me get out of here. Just thought you guys should know some of what's going on over here. So this time for real, I'm out. See you guys later for when we do adjectives.